Hello, and welcome to another Fire Emblem 8 difficult playthrough. Today we'll be talking about Iron Man, or rather, Permadeath, and how it affects how units not necessarily are rated in its entirety, but how you would go about weighing the positives and negatives of how a unit performs or overall is contributing to your overall gameplay or playthrough. So, I have a comment. First, I should talk about this chapter in particular. If you don't want to hear spoilers, skip ahead about a minute. But the first two playthroughs of this map, I do get 2 resets due to just the way I was handling the chapter. I almost skirted death the first time, but I made a very a key mistake in like a very, very tight situation that I probably shouldn't have made. So it wasn't RNG that did me that time. The second time, however, was a bit of RNG not being on my side. And then after that, I'll let you in on what happens in the next playthrough afterwards. But I think I'm going to somehow put this video as the 2 runs of me trying to get through both of these attempts at this chapter. And party comp is going to be 2 mages, Ross, healer, which I'm going to be using Natasha for this playthrough. And I should probably just go over how I feel about each unit before I get into the actual overall topic and why I'm using this party comp in general. Generally, I like to use this party comp because one, sometimes I would have loot switched out for Gilliam for obvious reasons, being able to take a lot of that frontline abuse so that other characters can come in and counterattack on player phase. But this time I'm going to be having loot as kind of a seldom used chipper, but more or less she's going to be an empty space for most of this fight. She's not going to be contributing almost in any way. She has no support with anyone, and she's not really going to be doing any combat whatsoever for most of this. But everyone else, starting with Erica, she's going to be doing a lot of the fighting on front lines. Franz is going to be doing a lot of the fighting on front lines. Joshua's going to be a frontline fighter, and Ross is going to be a frontline fighter for the most part. I'm also going to throw in Colm every now and again as a support fighter. Vanessa will be a support fighter, and Arthur will also be a support fighter, with Nimi coming in on the player phase full support, as she can only realistically attack on player phase unless I put her in a position where she's able to fight either another bow user or another 1 to 2 range javelin user or hand axe thrower or a mage. The reason why I'm using Erica as a frontline unit is because she generally is able to get the job done with her pretty balanced stats as of right now. She's usually at a point in most of my playthroughs and playthroughs I've seen other people play with, she can usually take care of herself. She has enough strength. She has the weapon variety to be able to handle most situations in early game, to fight most units, like pretty reliably, to either one round or hold a position. and she's just overall a pretty solid combat unit in my experience, even in the early game. Joshua is kind of self-explanatory, extremely powerful Myrmidon, has critical hit rates on his side, can support with the healer, so just he's pretty straightforward, pretty powerful combat unit. Kind of annihilates everything for better or for worse. Only thing kind of holding him back is his strength. But the early game, it's not too detrimental or taxing because he may struggle taking out armor knights, as do most of the cast, if you're not using a specific kind of counter weapon like Erica's Rapier or an Armor Slayer. But most everything will die in one turn fighting Joshua. Colm I'm using on this map for the very, very obvious reason of torching with a thief, which allows me to see most of everything that's going on in the map, so I'm not too terribly surprised at what's going on, because I haven't played this map in a while. It's been quite some time since I've played this map, so I'm not too familiar with the enemy layout, which comes at my detriment later on in this playthrough. He's also he's pretty okay at combat. He can pretty reliably take out soldiers if he dodges, and he can fight axe users, of course. And he can also scrap with mercenaries. Not really going to be doing too much damage to them, but he can like chip them out or have them at a standstill so that enemy can come in and support next player phase. I would also like to get him up so that he can be more of a... I would like Nimi and Colm to be like a duo, so they can walk around by themselves and go to places where I would like them to go later on in other chapters. I'm using Arthur because he is a... Oh wait, Franz? We already know why Franz is here. Dependable Cavalier unit. Has defense to be able to tank things more often than not. Has speed to be able to dodge things when we really need him to. Solid defense, a lot of HP. Pretty good weapon triangle control with swords and lances. Solid unit. Especially right now, since he got a couple good level ups in the past couple chapters that I've been using him, and he's usually just solid, dependable. Using Ross because he is an amazing axe user, in my opinion, the best axe user in the game. And so far, he's been getting some pretty decent level ups, and he has pretty good stats as of right now, and he can pretty much hold his own versus most Cavalier. But unfortunately, I can't put him in a position where he takes too much abuse because the healer is not going to be available more often than not. And if he takes too much damage on enemy phase, more often than not I will need him to attack the enemy. So having him sit there with a Volinary is kind of disadvantageous if I really need to kill a Cavalier so that they're not wreaking too much havoc. Using Arthur because when he dodges, he is a very solid magic user. Light magic is extremely accurate in this game. He generally has high 90s, if not 100% most of the time. And if he has decent strength, he can usually, not one round, but like severely damage whatever target he's fighting, especially targets that have low res like those knights and cavaliers. Who else am I missing? Vanessa. This is one of the early maps in which I feel that she is actually kind of important to have, because she is able to fly over the mountains and rescue those NPCs to get a guiding ring, If you rescue the NPCs before the spider comes down and kills them, they give you a free guiding ring, which you can use to level up whoever you need to. Or am I blanking on that? I'm saying guiding ring, but I don't want to mistakenly forget if it's the Orion's bolt. I'm kind of... I hope it's... Is it the Orion's bolt you get from this chapter, or is it the... No. It's actually the Orion's bolt that you get from this chapter. We got the guiding ring from chapter 5. Don't want to get that mixed up. Okay, so we got the guiding ring chapter from the chapter 5, Joshua. And this chapter, if you rescue the NPCs inside, you get a free Orion's bolt. So yeah, she's like pretty much key to getting that, unless you're going to like bully your way through with either you had leveled up your units with the arena and now they can just like crush everything, or you're just gonna use Seth and he trivializes the entire early game. So if you're like me and you actually want to play the game with some semblance of strategy and challenge, not trying to worry about turn count or just getting through as quickly as possible, to play efficiently, not in the fact that you're trying to get through quickly, but to have options in the way you would like to strategize. Because if he's there, the dominant strategy is just to let him do whatever, which is kind of brain dead in my opinion. And I put Nemi there so that she could damage tank, because I would like to use... I could have used Comb to like have him right there, but it would be easier to use Nemi as the quote fingers tank in that scenario, so she could take the hit and then immediately go to the back, and I don't have to worry about her till later on. Who else have I not spoken of about? Also, Vanessa's combat is kind of mediocre in this chapter. 2 reasons: I haven't really been leveling her up, and 3, there's just too many units that would completely annihilate her, even with her speed. If she gets hit 3 times, she's done. In some instances, if she gets hit twice, she's done. So she's kind of fragile here, and if you care about letting her live and not having to reset or getting to the NPCs in time, it's pretty tantamount to keep her out of danger and just let her swoop in whenever it's convenient for her. I'm using Natasha over Mulder because of the support with Joshua, and generally she's really good to me with generally she gets level ups that are conducive to being a good healer. There's nothing wrong with Mulder. I know some people prefer Mulder over Natasha, but I prefer pairing her up with Joshua, and they have extremely good support synergy, and she's just a solid healer overall. In truth, I could have also replaced Loot with Mulder, but I chose not to, for the reason that I just wanted to push my strategic capabilities as far as I could go, just to see what I could do with what I have, before then using a strategy that would allow me to more reliably or easily get through the chapter. Because I do not think that this chapter is impossible. There's just a lot of there's a whole lot of things that need to go right in my favor, and there's a whole lot of pre-planning that I need to do around the enemies that I can see, much less the enemies that I can't see. And also, that was an amazing crit. Really needed that. I was thinking really hard about what to do in this situation, because there's, again, all these Cavaliers, and then I'm trying to see who can kill who, because not everybody can reliably hit or reliably kill the next turn. I'm missing 1 point of strength on Ross to be able to kill that sword using Cavalier, so he's kind of freaking me out right now. And his hit rate is not that great because weapon triangle disadvantage, but he manages to get it anyway, and I'm so happy about that. And well, I think I covered everybody. Nimi, I want to pair with Cole. I really enjoy using bull users in every Fire Emblem game. I like Walt, I like Nimi, I like Rebecca. I like all of the bow users, more or less. And I really appreciate having someone who can support. That's like a strictly support unit for the most part. Just like having somebody on that second row is always kind of satisfying for me in the way I like to be a tactician in these games. Alright, now I'm going to talk about the actual topic after almost 16-15 minutes of just talking about the game in general. Topic at hand, Iron Manning, and I think this is kind of appropriate given the fact that I reset twice. I'm going to be using a comment by another person on Mecha's Discord channel named A Boy. I think he's also in just the Fire Emblem Reddit Discord as well. And his comment reads, to me, well, okay, I'll try my best. When I Iron Man, I still tend to use the best units since obviously I want to make sure I use the best in order to complete the goals easily and not get any casualties. Using bad units won't really help because they'll most likely not help at the get-go, and some will probably die in just 2 seconds. I think that it's important to use the most efficient units because they're much easier to use to accomplish the task. So basically the good units are still good and the bad units are still bad, since they won't do jack if they die, you can't reset and bring them back to train more. Sure, you can be more careful with them, but it would just be better to get the chapter out of the way faster with already competent units. If I lose Gordon and decide to use Thomas, that doesn't really mean Thomas gets better. He's only there because my archer died and I need another. Normally, I wouldn't use either, but I am for the sake of this example. So now I use Thomas. He's still bad, he does jack squat at base, and needs lots of training to do what Gordon did. He's just a bad flyer regardless of the mode. Having the opportunity to use a unit just because someone dies doesn't really make them shine if they suck. They don't get used for a reason. They don't get used for a reason after all. This is why you gotta be safe with your units, otherwise you're forced to use the junk if you want another unit. Ymir on FE12, he's just benched because you got so many other better units. And Iron Man, if you have space for him, well, he won't do anything. In higher difficulties, he gets one-rounded by everything. If he was actually good, people might use him, like Michaelis? Michaelis? I don't know how to pronounce that name. Is a good unit, and people will probably try to find space for him. Try to space to use him. If you Iron Man and have space, well, you don't have to worry about making space for him. Just because there's a spot available for a unit doesn't mean they get better. They'll still most likely have the same ups and downs as a normal run. Ooh, long comment. Alright, in game, things seem to be going fine. After killing that sword using Cavalier, it seems to... I'm so happy he went for Ross. Ooh. It's like the weapon triangle disadvantage worked in reverse since he's using the iron blade. Okay. I'm also sad he didn't dodge that 46. Does he dodge the bow? He probably won't. No, he won't. Sad. Getting hit by that javelin really hurt. Alright. Whew. Nimi coming in clutch. Okay. Having that B rank support really does help. Now to address. Oh, look at that. Oof. This is looking pretty crazy right now. I'll let this play out, and you can see my decision making for how I go about deciding this. This really did kind of not stress me out, but it was pretty brain taxing to see all the different combinations of how I can use each unit, which is one of my favorite parts of playing Fire Emblem. Just seeing who does what where, like playing chess. So, in Iron Man's, he's saying that bad units are still bad, and good units are still good. It doesn't matter if you lose them, whether they be bad or good units. It doesn't change the fact that the unit is still bad. So, I don't know, as an example, if you were cooking food and you had a really dull knife, but your really good knife, if you use it too much, it'll get dull too, or maybe it'll break because you tried to do something crazy with it, like, I don't know, cut open a coconut and it broke. Does that make the dull knife any better? Probably not, but that depends on your perspective. If you're using your good knife and you use it not necessarily in the wrong way, you use it as efficiently as you can, but luck is just not on your side and it breaks. Maybe there's something defective with the knife that you hadn't realized up until that point, and then you just lose it. Whereas the dull knife has this really fascinating quality of being able to open the coconut with the backside of it, because it's just a stronger, sort of like, let's say, a sharp knife versus a butter knife. A butter knife would be more efficient at cracking open a coconut because of it's usually a bit more girthy, and no, it doesn't cut well, but you can use it in another different combination in different ways. So if you lose that other knife, no, you don't really have the ability to cut things as well as you did before, but now you have this other set of circumstances that you can now focus your attention on that you couldn't focus on before. So instead of eating a lot of foods in which you would have to chop things up, now you're focused on crushing your foods. Instead of having chopped tomatoes, you have crushed tomatoes. And things like that. So instead of playing the way you were playing before, you can use the seemingly bad or less optimal units or items, tools at your disposal, and you can use them in different ways so that you get not necessarily different results, but you have this different complex sets of paradigms that you can now divert your attention towards. Maybe you open up a different way to learn how to strategize, or different plans that you had never thought of before that open up ways you thought about even using the good units that you were using before that you would never have thought of had you not had the opportunity to use the quote fingers bad units. Now, in the case of units that are bad because there are simply, they just lack in the area of, well, they don't have as much speed, so they don't double. They don't have as much defense, so they're kind of frail. They don't have as much HP, so they can't reliably be in situations where even if they do dodge, they're like Vanessa in this chapter. She has a lot of speed, but she doesn't really have the defense or HP. So yeah, you can maybe luck it out with a dodge or two, but if she gets hit by a hit or two, she's done. Whereas Franz over there, he has the HP and defense to be able to do both pretty reliably. So now you have this dichotomy of, should you play more risky and get certain benefits that come with the playstyle that is associated with just playing games fast in general. And this is where I make the huge, terrifically terrible mistake. Since I pulled comb back, I wasn't able to see what's in that corner. And if you're if you know about this map, then you know that there are actually quite a few enemies still over there. And I didn't know that at the time. When I popped the first torch, I thought that, oh, I kind of saw everything that was coming towards me. And those enemies do not run towards you. So it's really ambiguous. The Fog War chapters can be devious like that. There could be one enemy hiding in one square of fog that you wouldn't know about until it was too late. I learned that the hard way, yet again. Even all these years later, I'm still getting bopped by this chapter. To get back to his topic, it seems as if he's still on the side of the fence that good units are still good, even if the bad units die. But that kind of robs the potential of using those bad units and what they offer to you. See, look at that. I had no idea those three guys were over there. Plus, she's still in range of that other armor knight. This is terrible. And usually I wouldn't be like that afraid. Realistically, she should be able to dodge the dark magic user. She should be able to dodge the lance user. And she should be able to dodge the knight. The soldier and the knight. But the role of the RNG, man. The role of the RNG. Also, to quickly bring up the conversation with Mecha, the reason why I would want to train up Vanessa for this map is so I can reliably use Vanessa in case she gets into situations like this, where I just don't know, or I really need her to be able to fight enemies that she wouldn't normally be able to fight if she hasn't been trained up. And we're about to see this come to fruition right now. Oof. Ow. Movement is the best stat. And she does 0 damage. And she gets 2-shot by the 2 Iron Knights. That is sad. Now, to be fair, that was completely my fault. Ooh, and that was also extremely scary. He should not have dodged that. He should have died. She should still be kicking if stats were anything to go by. But that's the roll of the dice. And me for putting her in the pretty terrible situation. I cannot just let this play out. I'm just kind of dejected and so sad that I made that horrific mistake. Because I was really thinking I was running out of turns to get to those guys, and then when I saw the other phase and the spider didn't come down, I was so sad. I kind of rolled the cursor over there because I was so sad. And then I hit a reset. And we start up again. Alright, continue talking about the Iron Man challenge. It seems like people really like to really discredit other ways to think about playing the game that aren't getting through the game fast. He uses the standard or the playstyle, I don't know what else you want to call it, the paradigm, the standard of playing fast, or the strategy of getting through the game as quickly as possible is quote fingers the most efficient. And I have always been on the side of efficiency is a word that you can use liberally if you're talking to people who understand what you're talking about. But if you're using the word outside, or you run into a person who has different ideas of what efficiency means, then you yourself will not necessarily have to change your definition, but you're going to have to create a way of you should have two different ways of explaining what your mindset is, or is the word I'm looking for that means that. I can't think of it. Your mindset of when you're trying to use that word. Like, people understand your vernacular, more or less. So, like, it's kind of like an inside social, not construct, but social, cultural, I can't think what it is, like tradition or value. Like, this Fire Emblem community's values are that efficiency is solely meant to represent things that can clear the game faster because of the standards of some of the other games that have been put into place that allow you to get bonuses, or they track you, or you're just rewarded or pushed in the direction that you need to clear faster in order to see yourself as a better player of the game. And I think that that is wrong, because the game, most of the games don't really give you an incentive to clear faster, because especially in the older games, I don't believe there are any I shouldn't say that. I have not played the older games, so I can't say. In the GBA games, there is only one game, Fire Emblem 7, that has a rating for getting through turns faster. The stars you get, the tactician stars. That's the only game that does that. The other two games have no rating system. So why should you only use the FE7 system that came after FE6 is the only metric for getting through the game faster, unless there were metrics before that game that I'm not aware of. And even still, there should still be other ways of calculating or having a standard for being competent at strategizing different tactics or different parameters that allow you to play the game differently, that's not just speed based, so that you can like rate yourself highly, or to not rate yourself highly, but to give value to what it is you're trying to accomplish in the game. Because getting through the game faster, it's such a nebulous kind of thing. People have called what I have described as metrics for the game, or parameters, as not useless, but, well, actually some people have called it useless. They've called it unnecessary or contrived, or there's a specific word I'm looking for. Just a word that means it demeans everything that I'm trying to accomplish with trying to suggest something that's different. And that it's the word's right there and I can't think of it. I think it's actually U. I might just thesaurus.com this word, or I could search the chat right now, mid video. This word is like, it's kind of tantamount to what I'm trying to get across. Get them, friends. It's arbitrary. That's the word. It is an arbitrary rule set that I have in mind for the game as a whole. and that everything else is not arbitrary, which I find completely ludicrous, because if the game hasn't given you a set of parameters to do, and it doesn't reward you for it, then what you're doing is arbitrary. Clearing this game faster is arbitrary in the grand scheme of things. The only objective is to defeat the boss. It doesn't say to defeat the boss as quickly as possible. It just says defeat boss. How you go about doing that is kind of up to you. Whatever standard you give to that is kind of up to you. You can invent whatever standards you want. And it seems that most of the community has given the standard of clearing it fast, which is completely fine. Also, she got magic, which is awesome. Still needs some speed, some res. I think she got that level up too, so that's pretty okay. Skill would be also nice once she promotes to bishop. But yes, I think that it's arbitrary to argue for the fact that the only way to play, or the only standard that we should have, is speed. And I think that that is ludicrous, because there are so many ways that you can calculate efficiency, especially in a game that gives you so many options and so many ways to apply your units when there are no real standards of play. If I were to be honest, there's a lot of the FE YouTubers usually say, well, I'm not trying to make you play, or I'm not trying to, and in reality they actually are. Whenever I hear a tier list discussion from any of the Fire Emblem community, whether it be Mangs, Mecha, Blaze Knight, anybody, it's always with that caveat of, well, I'm not trying to point you in this direction while you spend 30 minutes of a video pointing me or pointing your audience in this certain direction, rather than giving them the full picture. And I think that's kind of, not disrespectful, but disingenuous to the entirety of the argument, because there's so much going on in these games. And I don't think there's anyone talking about formations, or there's no one really talking about unit interplay. Like, it doesn't really matter if your unit is weak in this area or is super strong in this area. How do they actually work together? What can you accomplish if you just build your team a certain way and see what you can accomplish? Is everyone bad just because they can't clear or kill things fast, or that they don't round everything? They're not optimal for combat. Noel, I think, is a terrible unit because he's not optimal for combat. But he has the niche ability to, for most people, they like to do the summon niche with him, where they summon a free summon unit monster, and they send them out, and they create different strategies and tactics around that. I think 10 years ago, no one was talking about a strategy like that, but it's only through careful examination of how the unit can interplay with how you would like to play the game, whether it be efficient, whether it be for LTC, whether it be for whatever you want to do. There just shouldn't be this closed off gate of no matter what parameter or standard we get, we should always just default back to this, because it's just, it feels kind of lazy, and it doesn't really feel like the people, I guess the heads of the community, it doesn't really feel like there's much deliberation on what should be done about developing other strategies and developing other standards around how people can tackle the game. Because in my opinion, as I've explained before, I think it's really unhealthy for people to not have challenge in a game that kind of is, it was born out of that. The very first game was born out of a need for Shojiro, I forget his first name, but Kaga wanted to make an extremely difficult tactical RPG, and to rob the game of that nature of being a difficult game and giving these mostly new players an ability, or even veterans, just an optional way to play the game in which you can grow into a sect or a different path of being good at the game, I think that's much healthier for the community as a whole than to continuously push just the same narrative of, well, if the unit can't kill fast, then they're bad. Or if the unit doesn't tank as much as they should, then they're bad. Unit doesn't have enough movement, then they're not a good unit. I think that's just kind of disingenuous to everything else that you can do in the game, that the game allows you to do, or just things that you haven't even thought of, because you only pigeonhole yourself into playing a certain way. I think that's wrong. And to counter that, I'm going to continue not playing the game like ultra casually, but I'm going to try to come up with a more interesting way to balance out using units, and not just lean on, well, if I get a super strong unit like in this game we get the mercenary, I forget his name, Garrick. I'm probably not going to use Garrick because he's so absurdly strong for combat specifically. He doesn't really do much else outside of killing things really well. But yeah, I think there's a lot more to be discovered in the game if we look outside of, well, we just need to clear things faster, and therefore the innovation will come with people trying to push that envelope. And by extension, and I'm kind of getting off topic of the Iron Man thing, but I think that how this person is perceiving how to view Iron Mans or Iron Manning is kind of disingenuous, even unto himself, because when you lose a unit, there's a comment like right below it, made by another user, and they say, or they said to me, is a gun any less deadly in the hands of someone who prefers to shoot on Tuesdays? And I answered with, for every other day of the week, when it's not in use, yes, it's not as deadly. Now, what he's really trying to say is the gun itself any less potent? I think deadly was the wrong word. Is it any less potent in killing things? And if he said that, I would have said it is less potent on the days that it is not in use. Yes. But is it overall less potent? It's kind of a weird general statement he tries to make, but he's trying to say, is the gun any less... Oh, I'm trying to think of a word that's not dangerous or deadly or potent, because they're all, it's kind of, it's all relative. The gun isn't deadly if it's not in the hands of someone who's going to shoot the gun with deadly accuracy, or like the gun, its potential for destruction is lowered when it's not in a situation that it's not going to be used at its full capacity, or even in a capacity in which the percentage of it hurting someone else because of someone else is high. So I would say that if you no longer have access to the gun on any other day that's not Tuesday, and you needed it 6 other days, you would kind of be up a creek because it's simply not there. Now, when you get it on Tuesday, it'll be just as deadly as it was on any other day. Yes, that's true. But if you don't have it for 6 out of the 7 days, relatively, it's not really all that dangerous. As opposed to, let's say you're around germs all day long, and you have the potential to get sick 7 days out of the week. I would say germs are way more deadly, and you can catch anything at any moment. There's a million billion different types of viruses, diseases, germs that you can catch any day of the week, especially if you're not a very clean person. And it's only because you have either a really good immune system, or you really do take care of other things like taking your vitamins every day, or you eat the right foods that allow you to have a good immune system, that you're able to skirt by the danger of getting infected with something that's really going to mess you up. But I also made a comment that I think it is far more dangerous for something to have a higher chance of hitting its mark, but with a lower threat level, overall threat level. Like, it's not going to cause massive damage, but it's a guaranteed hit. Then something that is a guaranteed hit that has a very low chance of actually affecting you or directly landing its mark. So if the gun isn't there to land its mark for 6 days out of the week, if you lose a character in an Iron Man, then there's nothing else you can do. And oh, Joshua's dead. And that's the end of those 2 runs. But yeah, this video's gone on pretty long, and I think I'll use this section, maybe the next video, to talk about to wrap up my feelings on Iron Manning, because I think this video got kind of off topic, just me sort of rambling about how I feel and what I think should be the plan to move forwards, not for the community as a whole, but just my ideas that I would like to pitch forward. And if anybody is willing to listen, then that's really all I've ever asked for. I didn't really ask for a lot of attention, just for the ability to suggest something that isn't really being talked about, and something that I would like heard, but I'm not hearing anywhere else. And that's it. Thank you for watching the video, and I hope you take care of yourself.